This is my story. The story of how the woman who brought me into this world sold me to her husband, and how for years I lived in silence, broken, but not destroyed. I was 12 years old the first time it happened. My mother had remarried, and I thought maybe this man would be the father I had been missing all my life. He smiled at me, bought me candy, and told me I was beautiful. I didn't know those words would soon become a curse. At night, he would come into my room. At first it was small touches, whispers that made no sense. Then it became more. I wanted to scream, but my mother was just down the hall. I thought she'd protect me, but when I finally told her, she looked me in the eyes and said, "You will do this. For the family. We need food on the table." That was the moment my childhood ended. My name is Lola. I am a woman in my 40s today, but my pain began long before my mother's husband ever touched me. I grew up in a peaceful neighborhood. I had my father's love and extended family even though I had no siblings. I always hear my parents fighting about it. My mother will always tell my dad she didn't want to ruin her shape. My father will call her selfish. My dad will always buy my sweets and sing to me. My mom will hit me for no reason, saying my dad is spoiling me, and it will be bad for me when I grow, so she has to discipline me. One time there was a serious fight because she almost burnt me with hot charcoal, and my dad caught her. When I was 5 years old, my father left us. People always said he abandoned us, but I remember the shouting, the crashing of plates, my father's tears. My mother was cruel to him. She hit him, insulted him, told him he was worthless. One day he walked out and never came back. From then on, it was just me and her, but she was never soft, never loving. I was just there, a reminder of the man who left her. By the time she met her new husband, I was desperate for love, for a father figure, for someone to tell me I mattered. Instead, I got a Predatron my own mother handed me over to. I will never forget the night my mother caught me crying after he left my room. My hands were trembling. My knees were still sore from the floor. My heart was still pounding from the sound of his belt hitting the ground before he touched me. I thought finally she would hold me. Finally she would see. Finally she would tell me it wasn't my fault. But she didn't. She looked at me with disgust, like I was the one who had done something wrong. Then she slapped me across the face so hard I fell to my knees. Her words burned worse than her hand. "Stop crying. He puts food in our mouths. You want to live hungry?" My chest caved in. It was like all the air left the room. She had chosen him, not me, never me. From then on, the house became my prison. Days were normal school chores, pretending to be an ordinary child. Nights were hell. Nights were when his steps would echo down the hallway. Nights were when my tears dried into the pillow, and my body felt like a cage. And every time I looked at my mother across the dinner table, I wondered if she could see the pieces of me breaking. My eyes begged her to see me, but she only chewed slowly, swallowed, and stared at the television. She didn't care. I learned just how little she cared one evening, when I crept down the hallway and stopped outside their bedroom door. I heard their voices low but clear. Her voice wasn't trembling. It wasn't ashamed. It was calculating. She was telling him to increase the money he paid her every month, money he gave her for me. "She's doing everything you asked for and more," my mother said, her tone sharp and businesslike. "If you want me to keep her quiet, I want more. Double what you've been giving me." I pressed my ear harder against the door frame. My heart was beating so hard I thought they would hear it. His voice was deep, casual, like he was talking about groceries. "It'll give you more. But I want a child soon. I'm tired of waiting." There was a pause. Then my mother's voice again, flat, cold and selfish. "I'm not going through childbirth again because of a man. I'm not ruining my body for anyone. If you want a child, take her. Make her give you one." The words struck me like knives. My stomach turned. My breath caught in my throat. She wasn't just looking away anymore, she was offering me. That was the night I stopped hoping she'd save me. At 14, I became pregnant. Yes, pregnant with my mother's husband's child. I didn't even understand what pregnancy meant at first. I was still a child myself. I thought maybe I had eaten too much, or maybe something was wrong with me when my belly started to swell. I begged my mother for help, thinking she would finally panic, thinking she would finally see me. She didn't. She looked at me with that same cold stare she always had, the kind that made my insides shrink, and said, "Then you'll know how to be a woman." That was it. No comfort, no protection. No apology for letting it happen, just a sentence that sentenced me to more pain. When my daughter was born, the betrayal became even deeper. My mother treated her like she was hers. She dressed her in little pink clothes. She held her like a proud mother. She paraded her around to family and neighbors, telling everyone she was her baby. And me? I was forced to stay silent, to bite my tongue until it bled. I was 14 and invisible, watching my own child grow up calling me sister. Can you imagine that? Your baby ripped away from you by your own mother. I would sit in the corner, arms aching, desperate to hold my daughter, but my mother wouldn't allow it. She only handed her to me when it was time to breastfeed, as if I were just a machine. I wasn't her mother, I was just her body. And when my daughter's tiny hands clutched my finger, when her eyes looked up into mine, all I could think was, is this truly my own mother? How could she take the one piece of light I had and make it hers? In public, she was radiant, smiling, showing off her baby. People would congratulate her, say how strong she was, having a child at her age again. She would laugh and soak it in, while I stood in the background like a shadow. When visitors came, I wasn't allowed to speak. If I looked too long at my daughter, she would glare at me, daring me to ruin her performance. She told everyone I was the big sister who helped, nothing more. At night, when I finally laid in bed, the ache inside me was worse than anything her husband ever did, because at least his cruelty was predictable. But hers was betrayal. A mother is supposed to protect you. A mother is supposed to fight for you. Instead, mine stole from me the only love I had left. The years blurred into one another. The seasons changed. I had 2 kids for them now. The neighbors changed. But inside that house, everything stayed the same. Abuse became a routine, like the sound of the clock ticking in the hallway, like the smell of my mother's cooking. I stopped feeling the difference between day and night. My body was no longer mine. My heart was no longer mine. I was a ghost moving through the motions of school, chores, and work, all while dying inside. Family visited sometimes. They thought we were just a struggling but normal household. They saw me serving food, cleaning up after the children, smiling faintly. They never asked why I never laughed anymore. They never asked why my eyes always looked so tired. Even if they had asked, what would I have said? My mother's words echoed louder than any hope. You do this for the family. But family became a prison. When I turned 16, I began secretly taking birth control pills I'd gotten from a school nurse. I was terrified of bringing another life into the nightmare I lived. I hid the pills under my mattress, praying my mother would never find them. But she did. One evening, she stormed into my room holding the packet of pills. Her face was red with rage. Before I could explain, she slapped me so hard I tasted blood. You think you're smarter than me? She hissed. You think you can deny us? That was the start of my second captivity. She locked me inside the house for months. I wasn't allowed to go to school. She made sure I ate herbs she mixed herself, dark, bitter, choking things she forced down my throat to make me fertile. She told me I was cursed, that I owed the family children, that my body was just a vessel. And then came the day she drugged me. I remember the taste of something sweet in my tea. The room started spinning. My mother's face blurred. I woke up hours later with bruises on my thighs and arms, my mouth dry and my heart broken. Her husband had been there. My own mother had held me down, drugged me, and delivered me like an offering. From that day on, I stopped dreaming. I stopped writing. I stopped being a child. I was nothing but a body to them, a body that bled and cried and obeyed. Pregnancies didn't stop. My body was still young, still fragile, but they didn't care. I became pregnant again and again. The first time ended in a miscarriage. I bled for days on the floor while my mother hissed at me for losing the baby. She wouldn't even take me to the hospital until I fainted. The next time, I carried a child to almost full term. I prayed every day for that baby, whispered to it at night, hoping God would let me keep at least one. But the baby was stillborn, cold, silent. My arms were empty again. I thought that would finally break my mother's spell, that maybe losing to babies would wake her up. But it only made things worse. The man she called her husband turned violent after that. He said I was cursed. He said I was a witch killing his children. My mother didn't protect me. She agreed with him. She called me names too. Most nights ended with bruises. Some beatings landed me in the hospital. My body was a map of scars, and no one asked how I got them. Family still visited sometimes. They thought we were poor but normal. Nobody knew I was living in a prison. Sometimes, after a beating, he'd sit on the couch watching wrestling. I'd sit on the floor near the TV, quiet, pretending to be invisible. But inside, I was studying, learning, the holds, the strikes, the ways to defend yourself. One night he came to me again, thinking I was still the quiet girl who would obey. But I wasn't. I hit him down there so hard he doubled over. He tried to grab me. I bit him, clawed at him, punched him again and again. I was like a mad woman. Years of rage and pain poured out of me in that moment. My mother ran in, not to help me, but to help him. She screamed at me. She pulled me off of him. She held his face, crying over his bruises. He was in the hospital for a while. They said the damage was a lot. I smiled secretly. And then she started spreading rumors about me. She told the neighbors I was trying to kill her husband, that I was ungrateful, possessed, dangerous. She painted herself as the victim. I had become the villain in her story. But for the first time in years, I had fought back. My hands were shaking, my heart racing, but a tiny spark had lit inside me. A spark that said, this isn't the end of me. Her time away in the hospital caring for him gave me a little time to spend with my kids, but she made sure there was someone watching my every move. By the time I was 24, I had learned to survive like a shadow in my own home. I moved carefully, spoke little, and carried my pain like a second skin. My daughter, the child the world believed was my sister, was the only thing that kept me alive. She was 8 then, bright eyes, innocent smile, always clinging to me when no one was looking. She didn't understand the twisted lies of our house. To her, I was still Sister Mommy, which I told her to call me. One evening, while we were folding laundry together in the corner of the room, she whispered almost like it was a secret game. Sister Mommy, Daddy said you're going away soon. Mommy said you'll make us rich. I froze. My heart started pounding. What do you mean, baby? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She giggled, innocent. They said a lady from Italy will take you. They said she'll send money every month, lots of money. Daddy said you'll be working for her, and then we can all eat chicken every day. Chicken. That's what my life was worth to them. I held her face, trembling, trying to get more. What else did they say? She shrugged. That you shouldn't cry, because you'll be fine. And if you don't want to go, they'll make you. Her words cut through me like knives. My own mother, my blood, was planning to sell me. After everything, after taking my childhood, my voice, my babish, was ready to ship me away like cargo. From that night on, I noticed the whispers, the locked doors, the way my mother followed me everywhere. I wasn't allowed to go to the market alone anymore. She would stand in the kitchen, stirring soup, and say things like, this world isn't kind to ungrateful girls. You better pray this woman takes you. At least then you'll be useful. Every word dripped with venom. The man only grinned whenever he passed me in the hallway, like he already knew I was no longer mine to own, like I belonged to their deal. But God was watching me, even in that darkness. One Sunday, I snuck into the back of the church after pretending to be sick. I sat at the farthest pew, trying to hide the bruises on my arms. The hymns washed over me, and for the first time in years, I felt something like hope. When the service ended, one of the women, Mrs. Jacobs, touched my hand gently and whispered, you look tired, child. If you ever need anything, we're here. I almost broke down right there, but I nodded silently, hiding my tears. That seed of kindness grew inside me. For weeks, I prayed. I planned. I knew I couldn't survive if they sent me away. I would die body and soul in another man's cage. The night came faster than I expected. My daughter ran to me, wide-eyed, whispering again, Sister Mommy, Grandma said tomorrow you're leaving. She said don't pack anything. They'll give you clothes there. Tomorrow. I felt my world collapsing, but also I felt fire in my veins. If tomorrow was the end, then tonight had to be my beginning. I waited until the house was quiet. My mother was asleep, curled next to the man she had chosen over me. My daughter was tucked in her bed dreaming. I kissed her forehead softly. We'll come back for you, I whispered. I promise. Then I ran, barefoot, heart racing. I ran through the streets until my lungs burned. I ran to the church, banged on the door like my life depended on it because it did. Mistress Jacobs opened the door, startled. She pulled me in, wrapped me in a shawl, and I finally broke. The pastor and his wife hid me for weeks. They fed me. They gave me clothes. They told me I wasn't crazy, that I deserved to live. They made a plan. And then, one dawn before the sun rose, they drove me out of that town. I left that house with nothing but my clothes and my broken self. But I was alive, and for the first time in my life, I was free. By 25, I was free. But freedom doesn't erase the ghosts. It doesn't scrub away the nights you woke up to hands on your body, or the voice of your own mother telling you to be silent. Even not in my beautiful home, I sometimes jolt awake at 3 a.m. heart pounding, drenched in sweat. I still hear footsteps that aren't there. I still reach for my diary in the dark, like I used to remind myself this is real, I am free. When the church hid me, we swore secrecy like our lives depended on it because mine did. Only 3 people knew where I was. The pastor, his wife, and their cousin. They gave me a new name, helped me get papers, and quietly kept tabs on my two children. Every report they sent me, every whisper of how my babies were doing was a lifeline. I clung to it while I'd built a new self out of the ashes of the old one. I stayed in the church house for almost a year. Then I moved into a small room of my own. It was the first door I ever locked from the inside. The first time I had a key that no one else could take from me. It was hard to trust any man after what I had lived through. Hard to even stand close to one without my skin crawling. But the pastor's wife's cousin was different. He didn't push. He didn't question. He simply showed up day after day with quiet kindness. He helped me fill out school forms, taught me to dry, and reminded me what safety felt like. It took 5 years before I could even say the words of my story out loud to him. 5 years of therapy, of church prayers, of crying into my pillow until there were no tears left. And when I finally told him everything, nets, the bruises, the babies, just held my hand and said, "You're not dirty. You're not broken. You're still here." I know some of you are wondering what happened to my mother. What happened to the man she called her husband? What about my two children? Get your seatbelts ready. That's a story for another day. Nah, I am a woman in my 40s. I live in my own home. I businesses, I laugh, I love. But the scars never leave. I have two children now with my husband, and I swore they would never know what it feels like to be unprotected. I tell this story not for pity, not for tears, but because no child should ever feel as alone as I did. No child should ever be betrayed by the person meant to protect them. I survived, but I will never forget.
Welcome back to Cherry Writes. I'm so sorry for the long break, but Cherry Writes is back. Here we share true stories, folktales, and powerful experiences, raw, emotional, and unforgettable. If you'd like to share your own story, my Instagram is Cherry Writes and my email is always open. This is a safe space for voices that deserve to be heard. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe, because part 2 of the story is coming soon, and trust me, you don't want to miss it.